Hi guys, I decided to make a quick video here to answer some of the questions that you had from last week. So I'm just going to go over a few problems and hopefully these will answer some of the questions that you had last week as we get ready to head into week number 2. So this problem is similar to one that we've seen where we're just trying to simplify the square root here of 150. So what we're first going to do is we have to break the number down as far as we can. So 150, you're looking for two things that go into 150. So it could be any two numbers that will divide into and multiply up to 150. So you could start with 15 times 10 if you wanted. And then you keep breaking the numbers down until you can't break them down any further. So 15 breaks down into 5 times 3. And 10 breaks down into 5 times 2. Now you can't break down any further because these numbers are all prime numbers, right? So those numbers, there's nothing else that goes into them besides 1 and themselves. So that's when you know you're done. So now what we have is we have the square root of 5 times 3 times 5 times 2. Broken down. And when you're looking to work with square roots, what you're looking for is you're looking for pairs. So what we're looking to do is anytime we have a pair, which we have a pair of 5s, when we take the square root of that pair, the 5 is going to come out. So the 5 will come out. So we end up with 5 on the outside, and then underneath the square root, we have a 3 and a 2. Now at this point, there's nothing else we can take out because we can only take out pairs. The square root of 5 times 5 is 5, so that came to the outside. And now what we're left with underneath is 3 times 2, so there's nothing left that we can do. So our final answer, we're going to multiply the 3 and the 2 back together, and that would be our final answer, 5 times the square root of 6. Okay? Now, let's do another one. Because there was some questions about problems like this. And what do you do if there's a number already in front of the square root? So what you really do is you kind of pretend that that number isn't even there. And you simplify the square root of 72 just like we did in the previous problem. So you take the 72 and you break it down however you want. So I'm going to start with 9 times 8 because that's kind of a common multiples of 72. And so then 9 times 8, I keep going. 9 breaks down into 3 times 3. 8 breaks down into 2 times 4. And then I can keep going with the 4. 2 times 2. This 2 doesn't break down anymore, and these 3s don't break down anymore. So now we're at the end here where with those numbers now can't break down any further. Right? So we have the square root of 72 there is equal to, remember that 8 is outside there, and we have 3 times 3 times 2 times 2 times 2. 3 2s. So remember, we're looking for pairs. So we have a pair of 3s, so a 3 is going to come out, and a pair of 2s, so a 2 is going to come out. So we have the 8 that was outside already, and then we have the 3 that we bring out from the pair of 3s, and then a 2 that we bring out from the pair of 2s. And then what's left underneath the square root is this 1, 2 here that didn't have any pairs with it, right? So that is left underneath. And now what we have is we multiply the numbers that we brought outside with the 8. 8 times 3 times 2 is going to be 48, and then underneath you're left with the 2. So it's 48 times the square root of 2 as your final answer. Okay? So when you have a number on the outside of the square root, you pretty much ignore it till the end of the problem. Break down the square root the exact same way you did in the previous problems, and then at the very end, you just multiply that 8 by the numbers that came out. All right? And I noticed on the homework, on the works last week, a lot of you did not have a problem with the first part where there was no number in front, but then some of you started to struggle when there was a number in front. Well, there's really no difference other than you just bring that 8 into play at the very end. At the very end. Okay, let's do one more in this little tutorial video. Let's do 3 times the square root of 48. So I'm going to break down 48. What goes into 48? How about 8 and 6? I'm ignoring the 3. Ignore it. And then I'm going to keep breaking these numbers down. 8, 4 times 2, 6, 2 times 3. Keep breaking down. 4 breaks down to 2 times 2. Now we're done. All right, we've broken it down as far as we can. Okay, so we have 2 times 2, times 2, times 2, times 3. All right, so when we go ahead and we do this, there's the 3 times the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So there's 4 2's, and then a leftover 3. All right, so you got a pair of 2's and then another pair of 2's. So for each pair, a 2 is going to come outside the square root. So you have the 3 that was there before. Square root of 2 times 2 is 2. Square root of 2 times 2 is 2. And then what's left underneath is this little old 3. And now the 3 comes into play only at the end here, like I said. So 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. So our final answer is 12 root 3. Okay? So, again, for those of you that were having some trouble with the ones where there's a number on the outside, that number on the outside is just multiplied by the square root. So it really has no impact on the problem until the very end when it gets multiplied by any numbers that you bring out of the square root when you take the square root of pairs. It only has an impact at the very end. Okay? So it looked like a lot of you doing good work this week, especially on the first part of the assignments when there was no number in front of the square root, but really that shouldn't cause too much of a problem because you only bring it into play at the very end. Okay? So again, I wanted to make this little quick video to go over some of the questions I was seeing last week. This week we'll be continuing with square roots. I've got some other videos picked out, and I really go through careful, try to pick out ones where they kind of go over it the exact same way I would. And I'll continue to kind of throw in some of these tutorial videos of my own when I get a chance. If you have any questions anytime, you can always come see me, come email me directly in my office hours between 10 and 11 in the morning, and then in the afternoon I'll be on email from 1 to 2. All right? All right. We'll see you tomorrow.